Good time. Oh, channel 2, good to get started here. Good morning, everyone. So just a small group today, but that's okay. We understand it's right before the holidays, so appreciate everybody joining us. We're going to have, I think, a fairly short meeting, although Carlo has reminded me that I promise that every month, and it doesn't pan out.
I didn't realize you had such thin skin.
Apparently, yeah. Carl hurt my feelings this morning. So some quick updates for everyone, just jumping into the agenda. Dan, I don't know if you had anything you wanted to start with before we get into the...
No, I think we can just jump to it.
To the updates here. So the first thing we have on is the Tule Subbasin, a little update on the GSP. There has been a meeting scheduled with the State Water Resources Control Board staff. It's scheduled for June 5th. It is going to be in person with the GSA managers traveling to Sacramento, and some of us joining in via a Zoom call. It is a 2-hour meeting. The gist of the meeting is intended to be, part of it is to talk about what we've accomplished. So give them an idea of what conditions are here in the Tule Subbasin, make sure that they have an understanding of what the basin setting, how, the kind of lithology that we have, the water conditions that we have, and more importantly, how we have historically dealt with, those water conditions, what we've done in the past, and then we're going to get into the GSP implementation. So over the last 3.5 years or so, what have we done? Each GSA is going to present a short update on what has been implemented over the last 3.5 years. Go through some of the projects, the management actions. We're actually going to have, talk about what we've done for groundwater recharge, any fouling programs, the allocation programs, the accounting programs, the grant awards that we've received, and how those are being spent, and what type of projects are being moved forward. And then, so a short summary of what we've done as an individual GSA, which, as you all are well aware, we're going to be focusing in on, the allocations, the type of, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, yes, the state is been, for others that have been in this meeting, other subbasins, the state is very interested in our demand reduction programs, which for us is the allocation that we set back in 2021, as well as domestic well mitigation, which we also adopted this year. So we do have a story to tell. I'll go back to the April 4th meeting that where state staff gave information to state board members on the GSAs that were deemed, or the subbasins, that were deemed inadequate, and they really didn't. They weren't able to convey what we've done to implement. So we think it's very important to tell a story to state staff that shows that we really have made significant progress. And as I was telling Amir earlier, when we were writing the plans, drafting the plans back in, 16, 17, 18, the thought really was, we didn't have a lot of data, particularly in wide areas. And for the first 5 years, we would monitor and collect data. And then in maybe 2025, we would start the type of programs that we've already implemented. So considering we're only in, the second year of implementation, or third year now, I guess, we have done an incredible amount of work. And so that is going to be our story before state board staff. Will that get us over the hurdle and with staff, and will they recommend not to state board members that we don't go to probation? I don't think so, but it is a start, and it's what we have to do initially, so that, I think it's a positive first step.
I just pause a little bit just to see if anyone had any questions. Hi, Mike. If anyone wanted to ask anything along those lines, one of the other series of slides that we're going to be preparing is going to be a lot about how well these implementation actions and management actions that we've taken, and we show some real value to each of them. So, meaning, can we quantify the amount of recharge? Can we quantify the amount of overdraft that's been saved by any transitional pumping type values in there? So those are the types of things that we need to be working on. And in fact, one of the reasons that we're going to be keeping this meeting a little bit short is because we've got a fairly tight deadline to get the package pulled together from all the different GSAs by this Friday. But Deanna and I are going to be working on getting our slides put together and submitted as part of the overall package for the group. So, go ahead.
I'll just catch Mike up real quick. We had Mike Thorson join us in the room. June 5th, the Tule Subbasin will be presenting in person in Sacramento before state board staff. So, for the Tule. So we're preparing a package which has to be prepared and submitted to state board staff by Friday, which includes slides, and they're very keen on understanding our domestic well mitigation, our allocation programs, our demand reduction programs, as well as any progress we've made. And I was saying that we've made significant progress, more progress than we could have ever thought in the Tule Subbasin when we initially were drafting these plans. We've moved forward fairly quickly, but I don't believe it's going to keep us from state staff recommending probation, but I think it's the first step in a process of education as far as what we've done to implement.
So this is an informal meeting, not a public hearing type meeting?
Correct.
It's the meeting with staff only, with state board staff only, yeah.
Police are willing to do it.
Yeah.
I kind of wondered. So the other half of the meeting then is going to be talking about the proposed plans of how we're going to respond to the comments in the Tule letter. So the first half of the meeting is really the 2-hour meeting. It's focused on here's what we've done, here's the basin setting, here's the conditions we're working under, here's what we've done to implement projects and management actions. And the second half is here's how we're going to fix the inadequate findings in the letter from the DWR. From the feedback that we've received from CWA and Kern, who've had their meetings so far with the state board, it's been fairly limited information on the schedule or the process of how we're going to get out of probation or even how they're going to review anything. A lot of the conversation has been with the state board focused very much on asking how well the projects and management actions are working and how do we know that they're working. And it's been very focused on those types of questions from state board staff. And unfortunately, the things that we're probably very interested in finding out is how we're going to get out of the inadequate finding and turn back over to DWR. They've kind of have presented very little information and have kind of said that that's going to depend on the board itself. So I think it's going to be important to have the meeting, obviously. I think it's important to have that dialogue with the state board staff, but don't expect that we're going to come back on June 6th and say to you, here's the path forward, we're gonna say to you, this is what happened at the meeting, and this is what we think the path forward is going to be. I know that's not exactly a rousing, call to arms here, but it is, it's a reality, and you kind of want to manage everybody's expectations on this meeting a little bit.
First step, that's what I would say.
Yeah.
The first step in the process.
The other conversation that I had recently was with folks up in the Chowchilla GSA who were also found to be, or subbasing, excuse me, who were also found to be inadequate. And Chowchilla has taken the approach that they have completely rewritten that section of their GSP, and they just reached over, grabbed Merced's, did a cut and paste job, essentially just dropped in whatever passed in Merced into there, and they're gonna walk into their meeting with this thing and say, here you go. So that's one approach, and I bring that up just so that everybody knows.
Do those two basins have a subsidence issue or no?
No.
See, that's the difference for us.
No, they don't have a subsidence issue.
That's
It
the
is a big
difference.
issue. It is a big issue.
Big issue.
Yeah. And where we're sitting right now, has obviously gotten the attention of the state very much.
Yeah.
Very, very much. With the subsidence issues specific to this and the flooding and, the idea that those two might be connected, which,
That's what I'm worried about, Amir. When I look at the flooding to the east now, and
Yeah.
you look at those elevations, I didn't even realize it was that much. And now when you look at it, it's like, holy smokes.
yeah.
The three sub-basin area just southeast of where we're sitting, where the three sub-basins come together, Kauai, Tulare Lake, and Tule, has been subsiding in the drought times over a foot a year, or near that. And until that issue has been addressed, I think it's gonna be very difficult to get out of this process.
So when you look at all those new lands that are gone underwater now,
Yeah.
And the undesirable result from subsidence, I think we're bullseye. I mean, and I shared with you Carla's comments,
Yeah.
that she
Yeah.
tweeted. I was like, holy moly.
Yeah.
Or she tweeted her comment.
Deanna actually went and found that article that's referenced and looked at it. I mean, it was, an NGO, if I remember correctly, but she was quoted correctly in that, so.
Yeah.
I was a little bit concerned, I just wanted to make sure that that was the actual quote, and it is definitely the quote from the article.
And
So-
I was like,
She sees Corcoran as ground zero.
Mhm.
when I saw that, it makes sense that on the conversation I was listening to with the state boards and the DWR staff, that
Mm-hmm.
I think DWR is just like, yeah, you guys deal with it, don't bother calling us.
That's right.
I think
Yeah.
DWR I think they played us like they were gonna talk to us, but I don't think they have much patience with us anymore.
Yeah.
And that's why I think your meeting up there is gonna be tough, we're not gonna, I think
Yeah, my understanding, Mike, is that DWR staff has shown up to the other meetings, the Kauai and the Kern meeting that I mentioned. But it's only been like 2 individuals, with 13 individuals from State Water Board. So who's in charge is very clear. It is very much State Water Board staff now. It's firmly in the hands of the State Water Board.
Well, and there's a very big difference between the Tule subbasin and Tulare Lake subbasin. The Tule has been very aggressive,
Mm-hmm.
and even though we still have that subsidence issue on the west to manage, they basically have said that, the management along the Frank Kern Canal, they accepted,
Mm-hmm.
and that, and they are very keen on our demand reduction program. So the Tule, I think, has a position and can start telling a story, whereas some of the others, Kern, Tulare Lake, haven't been as aggressive. Now,
haven't done anything.
there's
Yeah.
still, there's still reason for concern of whether, being that aggressive is going to pay off in the end. It's unknown, but it seems like it's a better story.
I would rather be sitting across from the state board staff and being able to tell them that you have an allocation plan or policy in place and have actively implemented it.
Yeah.
And even if we have to go back and say we don't have all the data just yet because we're only a year and a half, sure shows that we're serious, and I think that's going to be a positive for the Tule Subbasin at least.
One thing, Amir, are you gonna be able to show though that, you know, we've started where you're paying more if you pump too much,
Yeah.
but are people just writing checks so the pumping hasn't changed? So, you know, do we have anything showing that the pumping has been reduced because they don't wanna pay the additional amount, or people just saying, it's just cost of living increase, and so I just, you know, I just pay more and I can continue pumping?
So we have that data, Mike, that we're actually going to look at and see. So overall, across the subbasin, pumping does change. It has actually, in the last water year that we have the data for, 22, it actually went down. Part of that, though, I'm trying to figure out, when we get a chance to sit down and look at it more, is how much of that was just reduction in Angiola's pumping because they were able to bring in some surface water, and how much of it was in the southeast area. Have we shown any real reduction in the southeast area? And that second part is, I don't have an answer for you sitting here right now, but that's what I'm going to be looking at. In fact, and one of the things that David Finney, who's with our office, is on the call, and David and I are going to be looking at that. So David wrote the annual report and has a lot of that data, and we're going to be taking a look at that and seeing how much reduction in that southeast area has actually occurred.
And another thing that I'd asked Amir to put on a slide is, you know, Tri-County Water Authority overall already has a lot of fallowed acres. And other GSAs are beginning fallowing programs, which we are looking at and going to incorporate as well. But we were ahead of the game in some of the fallowing. So, we have a production acres to fallowed acres, our ratio is much better than others. So I think we want to show that too.
Earl, any questions? You look like you were
starting to tell you, I don't think our groundwater pumping was down in 2022.
am I misremembering?
If there was some reductions overall in Tri-County, it had to have, when I say our, I mean
Angela's, yeah.
Come from the other end.
Okay, maybe I'm misremembering and
It was almost a record.
Last year was not a light year.
yeah, it was still part of the drought. I'm trying to remember, I want to say for sure that the pumping water year 22 was less than 21, for sure. But I'll like I said, that
bears looking into.
Yeah, we're gonna be.
I will forecast that we'll be down in 2020.
Yes, it will definitely be down in 23, yes, I'm assuming that too. Just a quick update on one other item related to the GSP, and this is for both subbasins as well. DWR did issue a letter on the 2nd of May, which is, addressed specifically the periodic updates that are due to them, and they very specifically made it clear that the 25 GSP update is not going to be required for the basins that have been deemed to be inadequate. So we are not working on a 25 update. We are focused in on getting the GSP approved and our continued implementation of that. Hopefully, when we get turned back over to DWR, we'll worry about whatever update or anything else that might be necessary. But let's cross that bridge.
We're doing an update anyway.
Yeah, we're literally doing an update anyways. We had made a point several times to DWR that it made no sense. We were already gonna be doing this, it serves the same purpose realistically. If anyone does have any questions, please don't hesitate to take yourself off of mute and ask. Quickly on, and Kate, I know you're probably very interested in this, on the Allensworth design. we have taken a look at some of the information available across the properties and looking at easements and what easements do exist. And so we have some of that. We have that data now. We've reviewed it. The next step is to complete the actual topographic survey. Along with that, we have submitted the paperwork to DWR for the waiver of CEQA under the governor's EO. And then after that, we will be, hopefully as it continues to dry up here, we will be driving onto the site and actually doing the geotechnical investigation and the lithology and taking a look at what kind of soil conditions we actually have across the site. Some of that will be invasive and some of it will be geophysical methods as well. So we'll be doing both of those. Kathy is going to be working on getting some of the permitting issues listed. These are some of the requirements for the biological, the cultural, some of those types of requirements, so that we can get some subs lined up and get some of those studies done as well. They're not, you know, the CEQA has been waived, so or will be waived, I should say, but we still need some of those studies done for permitting purposes. Just not, it's just welcome to California.
When do we think we're going to the community?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, County, I would like to have some design options available to you. I'm out for a week and a half, but I'd like to have something to you towards the end of June, and lay out, you know, meet with the community and lay out some options for you to review and discuss with us. And like I said, the idea here is to give you some options. We're not going to, you know, we don't want to come in and mandate something, but we want to be able to show you some options and get some feedback from the community. It's going to be with the easement issue is going to limit us more than all of us would have liked. But you know, it is what it is, and we'll work with landowners and community and everyone else to address those.
Yeah, thanks for the update, Amir. Is there any coordination with Deer Creek Stormwater District? My understanding is I've had a number of conversations with Jack Mitchell. He's indicating that he has some thoughts and solutions, potential solutions to ensuring that waters from flows from White River are controlled and moved away from our community. This last time around, we had some impacts from White River and stuff like that. So I'm just wondering if there's any coordination, because some of this water is coming to the proposed project site. So just wondering if there's that coordination on how that water is conveyed to the project.
Yeah, Coyote, Deer Creek has not contacted us. I would be happy to have that conversation with them. And, you know, if you thought there was value in having a joint meeting, you know, we'd be happy to join with that as well. But yeah, I haven't had any contact with them.
Okay, well, I don't have a problem facilitating this, because I think it's very important and critical for us, especially for us here in Allensworth, that we have some way, and I believe the opportunities are there now, especially for funding, how we coordinate conveyance of this water whenever it does come to our project site.
Sure. Sure,
I'll leave it at that, but like I said, I can facilitate a discussion, further discussions about this.
Yeah, I think it would be worthwhile to do that. I would want my technical team, so Mayor, to be there so that, you know, we could, have a technical discussion. So, maybe sometime at the end of June, that would, when are you back?
No, I'm back in like June 11th or something.
Okay, so mid to end of June, if we could coordinate a date, that would be fantastic.
Probably keep somebody from Angela there too, since we have the license.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So Katie, yeah, I agree. If you could get, and facilitate that meeting, we'll make sure that the right people are there from our team as well.
Right.
Yeah, well, sounds good.
And it would be good for Angela too.
Yeah.
I'm actually gonna touch a little bit upon that later in the agenda. Okay, so let me just quickly, on Tulare Lake, just to wrap this up, so much for my short meeting. Tulare Lake, we do not have a firm date for the meeting for the Tulare Lake subbasin. We have proposed June 15th to the state water board staff. That was submitted to them last week. They have said that they'll let us know hopefully early this week, but we're already into Wednesday, so I'm going to try and push them and prompt them a little bit today to make sure that we can get that. The June 15th meeting, Tulare Lake has made a decision, we're going to do that via Zoom, and again, it would be the GSA managers with the state board staff and DWR staff. We also envision a very similar type of approach that the Tule subbasin is taking in terms of, explaining what we're doing and why we've done what we've done, and then talking about how we're going to address the comments directly from the letter. The other item that I was going to mention quickly for Tulare Lake is that the native yield study, which is the first step in getting an allocation discussion going for Tulare Lake, that phase one of that has been approved and authorized as of Thursday of last week. And so our firm is going to take the lead. We're going to work closely with the groundwater modelers in the Tulare Lake subbasin. The initial ideas are to put together a white paper that is essentially going to make sure we're all using common terms, that we're all defining water in the same way, start identifying some of the buckets that water is going to be going into, and start identifying a few other things, so that's phase one. Get that out, get that to the GSA managers, and get their input, and then we start. There'll be several public outreach. The idea essentially is to look at water across the entire subbasin, which, as you all can imagine, in Tulare Lake is very different in the northern part of it as versus the southern part of that particular subbasin. And ultimately, through this process, it's going to probably come back with some suggestions, recommendations, options, whatever you want to call it, for some kind of allocation program. Apparently, the word has definitely gotten out, because I got 2 phone calls yesterday. When I was out in Kettleman, I got 2 different people calling me and asking me what the value is. I'm like, man, we barely got authorized Thursday, and you guys are already asking me what the number is.
Oh, the yield?
Yeah. Yeah. What the allocation essentially is going to be.
Let's skip the study, just tell us the answer.
Yeah. Deanna, anything on basin safe that we want to share? I keep that on the agenda.
I don't think so. Not today.
Okay. Susan, anything on the Tule Trust that you'd like to share with the group? Is there anything on any updates?
Not a lot of updates currently. I think since we probably last met, we're still working on, which Deanna would know, MLRP. I think we are finally making some strides on developing that outreach piece and getting a plan so we can launch that. we've been doing a lot of internal structure development with uh, the trust. And we did close escrow on the purchase of Caponero. We are trying to finalize the restoration plan for that project. We will be having a meeting in a few weeks to review the preliminary plan put together, see if there's any changes we want to make. And we are also working on revamping the land fallowing cover cropping program for this upcoming year based on lessons we've learned in the first year pilot. We're looking at, addressing any issues that we've foreseen and developing a little more structure for that program so we can be prepared to roll that out earlier rather than later, and people have plenty of time to prepare. I think that's the biggest piece. And I'm sorry I'm not on screen, but you don't want to see me today.
Susan, what is the timeline for the landowner advisory committee for the MLRP?
There hasn't been a real timeline developed. I did, when we had our meeting this last week, I was really looking because I have been trying to establish meeting dates that I can attend for other irrigation districts and GSAs within the area so that I can get the word out. And I would say my goal is within the next couple of months is that we will have at least a preliminary start. I don't know how successful I will be in getting the number I have kind of imagined in my head, but I think we'll be definitely on our way within the next couple months.
Was there a resolution, I had to leave the outreach meeting early this week, was there a resolution to how the Nature Conservancy and others are going to participate? It was my thought, but again, I had to leave the meeting early, that, you would have these advisory committees, whether a community advisory committee or a landowner advisory committee, and then I would think the trust and also the Nature Conservancy and Audubon and others would be advisors in those meetings, or they're there for input. Is that how it ended up being laid out?
I don't believe that they made any final decisions, but they recognized the importance of that, and that there was discussion that would certainly be a benefit as well as something they would strive for, but unknown whether or not everyone could commit to that depending on the timing. Now, they did mention that if there were virtual options, that would make things a lot easier as well for that to happen.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Deanna, can I just, this is Kathy. Can I bring up something that's not with the Thule Trust, just very, very quickly? The watershed coordinator that Ren was the watershed coordinator for the Pixley grant for the Thule Basin. They only have one applicant, and if anybody is interested in taking on that position, they need to contact Dan Vink. So if you know anybody, this is separate from the trust. This is the one that Pixley got, the grant they got 2.5 years ago with the Department of Conservation. They're looking for somebody for the second half of that program. And it looks like they're going to be closing off applications. And right now we just aren't getting many people. The only reason I report out is because I helped revamp that scope of work. So if you have any questions, just email me or text me.
Okay, thank you.
Kathy, when are you back in town?
June 2nd.
Okay. Well, enjoy.
Yeah, it's great seeing It's great seeing friends, but it's nice to catch up with all you guys today because I've been gone for about a week and a half.
Yeah, appreciate you taking the time.
Yes.
David Armanesco, David, I always forget to include you on the agenda, and I apologize. Is there anything that you'd like to add? Anything from your side?
We're just working on setting up some meetings with some state board members for Deanna, and we've already begun that outreach. So that is underway.
Fantastic. Yeah, no, thank you. That's really great. Okay, quickly on the implementation side, on the emergency groundwater recharge policy, have we actually received any?
Yes, we do, and so, we're gonna evaluate those, and I would like to see a credit provided with the Q2, billing that will go out. So, we've received three
Yeah,
applicants.
Three, yeah, that sounds right, yeah.
And I assume we'll be receiving a couple more, but I don't have them as of yet.
Okay. Certainly want to encourage everyone, take advantage of that. I understand that the governor's new EO amendment, or whatever he's calling it, extends the emergency out to August.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah. It's good. We're certainly going to have floodwaters running down the river into August, or at least certainly appears to be. So that's good. That's in place. But the emergency groundwater recharge for Tri-County is in effect for the whole year. And, you know, from what we're hearing, if we end up in an El Nino year, we might end up in a wet fall as well.
Well, it's the water year, so we would have to re-up that.
Oh, the water year.
Yeah.
Okay. MLRP, I think we talked quite a bit about that already in Susan's update, but I am going to give you guys, I don't have anything on the on the Tri-County specific plan. No real update for the group just yet. But I was going to say real quickly that as far as on the Allensworth project, from the MLRP side, we did meet with Audubon, and we did discuss including a habitat component for that project, and we are absolutely going to be moving forward with some design. And Coyote, when we submit some options and layouts to you, it will incorporate that wetlands and some habitat into that as well. So it will be truly a multi-benefit project. Okay, now, since I haven't been exactly like Mr. Happy Good News today, but I'm actually going to go a little bit even more in that side, so sorry. The draft awards for the Round 2, Sigma Round 2 grant were posted last Friday. For almost all the money, about $187 million of it went to the medium and high priority basins. Merced was the only one who got, if I remember correctly, Merced was the only place where a critically overdrafted basin got additional money. And they got it for essentially a habitat project. It's kind of amusing because I think their project was rated 5th when they ranked their own projects in the Merced subbasin. The DWR reached down into their 5th place project and gave them $4 million, something to that effect. Couple of interesting things to note. It is posted on the website, and if anyone does want a link, I'll shoot you the link. A couple things to note is that like Zone 7 up in the Pleasanton area, they got $16 million for PFAS, for water quality cleanup. There was a lot of money. I mean, it was $187 million, and they got $16 million. Somebody else got like $10 million for another water quality type project. Yeah, so So, a lot of money spent.
I think you told me what's the source of this money?
So it was multiple bonds, but mostly Prop 68 money. That wrapped up to the 187. There was supposed to be 50 million additional that was supposed to come out of general fund to make it 230, but that clearly has been clawed back as part of the state budget issues. Who knows what else might get clawed back? Just speaking of state budget, very quickly, I mentioned this to Deanna that I did take a look at the governor's proposed budget, and David, correct me if I get any of this wrong, but it looked like he had put in about $4.5 million of money specific to the state water board to deal with the inadequate basins. So I found that kind of interesting. It was called out, in the SIGMA section under his proposed revised budget that he had submitted. So disappointing news. Deanna was called it. I have to admit, I was a little bit more optimistic that we would get something, that they would try to get some money to the critically overdrafted basins, but it didn't work out that way. Most of the medium or high priority basins got somewhere around $6 million, $5 to $6 million, and then a few of them got some big chunks of money. So, Katie, as I mentioned earlier, one of the projects that was going to be funded under that round 2 was a conveyance project specific for channelizing the White River. That's one of the conversations we'll have about some additional and alternative funding mechanisms for that. Okay, let's talk about it. I don't see any questions or anybody's hands up, so I'm going to keep moving. The groundwater quality mitigation plan. So as I mentioned last month, for those of you that remember, the groundwater quality mitigation plan was struggling a little bit with that because we felt like we wanted to be careful that we didn't overcommit as a GSA for every water quality issue that is out there, and that the GSA is not somehow responsible for every water quality issue. So we went back and forth trying to figure out exactly. We have a draft document that we've pulled together. It is still pretty much in a working draft. We'll be honest with you guys, the revising the GSP has been our main focus, and while we certainly agree that a mitigation programs need to be in place, we also want to limit and not get too far ahead where the GSA then all of a sudden is responsible for a number of ongoing water quality issues that have been here.
And I will remind the group that the board did approve and adopt the groundwater level well mitigation program to mitigate against dry wells. That is on our website in both English and Spanish and available to the public. The Tule Subbasin had put a deadline for subsidence and groundwater quality mitigation June, but due to the inadequacy determination, that date is going to slip a little bit. The GSA's, a lot of the bandwidth has been taken up with strategies to meet what the state's asking us to meet. So those mitigation programs will happen, but the deadline's going to slip a little bit on us.
I'm gonna walk you through our current version of the document, and we'll probably going through at least one more revision of this document before we send it out to the group for your review. But I'm gonna walk you through this, and as I say anything in here that you think you have ideas or suggestions, please feel free to share and you can unmute yourself and add anything that you like. Can everyone see that okay, or would you like Stacy to blow it up a little bit more?
I can see it good.
Okay, good. Carlo, you okay? Did you need to grab the other glasses, or?
No, I was looking closer,
I'm just giving you grief, Carl, don't worry. Okay, so just a quick, the introduction section essentially just says that this is, the water quality mitigation. There was, in the GSP, the 22 GSP that was found to be inadequate, there was a mitigation program framework included in that, and we committed in that document to preparing this mitigation program. Again, similar to the water levels, we try to use the same type of format, the same type of language. We went in and included some eligibility requirements. The third bullet item, as I said, this is a working draft, so the third bullet item was going to be about making sure that they're basin safe account, and I was going to find out exactly how we wanted to word that, but it is essentially making sure that you're in good standing with Tri-County on your basin safe, and that you've paid all of your outstanding dues to be eligible for this.
That's probably an if statement, because I could potentially see people who don't have basin safe accounts that would be eligible.
Yes, good point. You're right. Some domestic well owners and others who may not have basin safe accounts, that's a good point. So if that item number 3 does apply to you, then we need to make sure that that's current and in good standing. Again, you must have owned the property in the well after January of 2015, which is the start of the SGMA process, obviously. First bullet item in there, we say that it's going to be located within the Tri-County boundaries. In the water level, we were willing to accept wells that are outside that may be impacted from a water level standpoint. We, at least right now, in our working draft, have taken out wells outside for water quality, and that water quality should then be addressed by the GSA that your well is located in. We are still going back and forth that, if a well's a near boundary condition or something, we all understand that, and we would be, willing to have that conversation with that particular landowner, but we are mostly want to make sure that, for the most part, everyone is focused in on the GSA that their well is located. Let's see. So that's some of the eligibility requirements. If
The 1990 thing's pretty important.
yes, sorry. Mike, were you going to add something?
Yeah, and on your 1, 2, 3, 4, the fifth one, it says the well has been operated since January 1, 2015 and experienced groundwater impacts after that date.
Yeah.
What about before? Does it mean they only experience after it, but what happens if they had it before?
Yeah, so that's a good question, and I'll get to your comment too about 1990. So with SGMA starting in 2015, we as a GSA are not responsible for previous events before 2015. So if water quality had been impacted in a well prior to 2015, and that plume of salt or whatever existed in that area, nitrates existed in that area, you had an impacted well, then that's not something that the GSA had any control on, and our GSP was not in effect at that time. So those previously impacted wells, we're not saying are going to be caused by the actions of the GSA, and therefore we're going to exclude those from this policy.
Politically, though, are we going to get around? I mean, assume a well happened in that area.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like the reality is we're still going to have to deal with it. any well that has nitrates, aren't we gonna have to?
So,
I mean, I'm hoping you're right, but I mean, just saying the political reality, somebody says I got nitrates in there, we're probably gonna get stuck with it, aren't we?
Well, there's a lot of issues at play. First, you have the, management zones for the CV salts. So that nitrate issue is part and parcel to that program. And, you know, we have to be careful how we design this. From my perspective, and I've said this to Amir, TSA likely isn't going to pay for impacts. It would be the actions we'd have to take to prevent further impacts.
I mean, whether it's TV salts or this, I mean, wells that have nitrates in it, and it's getting forced to deal with it.
Doesn't it seem better to have the policy like it is?
Oh, I agree, Carl.
Rather than
I'm just
invite it in, let's
Yeah.
at least have them knock on the door.
I'm just talking about the reality, Carlo, not,
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with this, but I'm just.
Yeah, no, we're with you on this. This is why this water quality one has been a difficult one to, write and wordsmith. And every time I've come back, Dan has, you know, realistically said, well, wait a minute, you know, here's a realistic scenario that we need to consider. I think probably what I need to add to this is making sure that people are active in their coalitions for CV salts. And that may be one of the requirements or that we're gonna have for your eligibility. If you wanna come to us, you've had to be active in CV salts in that coalition and be part of that coalition. Which hopefully we can then direct the salt issues back to the coalition and keep only other issues with us. Now, you know, the tricky part is on any of these compounds, you could have water levels drop, have your well impacted, and then drop some more, and that impact may be limited in that one zone. Uranium is a good example of that, right? Where you don't, if you get below a certain zone and you block it off, you don't have that uranium problem in your well.
You know, and you probably heard me voice this before, but on the CV salts, I kept asking the question with Laurel Firestone and crew, ag gets blamed for it, but what about all these, you know, some of these quote disadvantaged communities, which was 10 or 12 mobile homes, you know, so you'd have 10 or 12 septics, one shallow well, and it's like you're blaming ag for it, and it's probably those septics that are doing it, and there's no proof here. It's just if there's a problem, ag gets blamed for it, and there's nothing about, well, was your septic tank real close to your shallow well or any of that? So, yeah, it was frustrating listening to that whole dialogue, and they just kind of get blown off.
Yeah, so you know, the important thing to remember is that we did not cause any of these problems at GSA. And that's where I've been struggling, is trying to find a way to write this in a way that meets the requirements of SGMA and what the subbasin's trying to do, but without taking on responsibility for things that we did not, A, cause, and B, have very limited ability to control. The septic systems is a good example. We have no way of regulating that. We're not the water board.
Don't the counties have a standard now on that? And I was wondering, if I was writing this, I'd say that they had to meet septic tank standards too, as far as distance from the well.
The counties do have a standard, and yes, when you permit a well, it does require you to be, I don't remember the exact distance, but it does require to be.
It's like 100 feet or something.
Yeah, 100 feet sounds right, yeah.
Which it doesn't even seem like that's sufficient. I mean,
I agree.
You gotta drill a deeper well than if you're gonna be around that, but.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, I'd like to add my 2 cents to at least this portion of this conversation.
Certainly.
If we have any issues with this septic tank systems, And we know that some of these are historic. They've been there for eons, maybe no compliance with anything not permitted and stuff like that. So those are there. We can talk about what happens going into the future. A lot of the systems are failing. So I don't want to say, how would I put it? I think what we need to be looking at is advocating for communities like mine to have a full sewerage system where you, instead of all this failing septic tank systems, you come up with a sewer system where you collect all of that and treat it. You have potential for recharge. You have potential for addressing wildlife, refuges and stuff like that. There are opportunities, but let's advocate for those types of solutions. Talking about septic tanks in our area for a great extent is a failing fight or mission. It's not, you have so many systems, except if you decide to come replace everyone, almost everyone. Let's advocate for better systems that collect and make use of whatever we end up with. My 2 cents.
Yeah, Cody, and we talked about that even at CV Salt. When you have density where homes, it made sense where you could put a line in to collect, but some of these were so sparse and spread out that it would be cost prohibitive to, try to have a big collection system for all of them. But your situation out there, it would make a lot of sense, I think, because of the density. They're fairly close where they're together.
Cody, did you receive funding for the system, or we're still looking for funding for that?
I'm just so sorry. I didn't hear a thing you said. It was all mumbled. Sorry.
I was asking, did you receive funding for the sewer system for Allensworth, or we're still seeking funding for that?
We are still seeking funding. My understanding is, well, we had a study done, design, proposed, constituents of this project, costing. The environmental study, I believe, just got completed. We just need funding to make it happen.
Okay. I know we haven't had we haven't had any of the consolidation meetings in a while, have we? Or I just missed those?
No, we haven't had any of those in a while. I think everybody just got tired after. It's just one of those. But yeah, we do need to continue those meetings.
Hey, Coyote, this is Kathy. Isn't Fresno State still working on some funding to help with that? Sarge Green and Carl?
That's exactly what Deanna just talked about. Just
Right.
mentioned. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I was just commenting because I think they're still working on moving that forward. It's just gotten delayed.
We used to have meetings every month. We haven't had one in a couple of months. We need to regroup and continue those discussions at this point.
Yeah, we'd love to see that move forward, and it's part of the design that we're creating for the recharge area. So, we're 100% in agreement on that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good point, Carrie, about the, encouraging or advocating, I believe was the term you used, for better systems. Hold that thought for a second, because I think in about a few items down, we'll be talking a little bit about that. So just to kind of move forward in the interest of time for everybody, qualification for mitigation is probably the one area that, has been the biggest issue, because this gets back, to the issue of what constitutes an impact to a well from the GSA's responsibilities and activities. I've kind of thought that maybe the best way to write this is not about the individual well exceeding a water quality standard. You know, we kind of approach the water levels as when a certain well goes dry or water levels get below a certain, you know, we've kind of looked at it from an individual well standpoint. But maybe the best way to look at water quality is a regional standpoint. So that means that some of the RMS wells, the representative monitoring wells, if those start to show water quality impacts, then we would look at what's going on with individual wells in that area, as opposed to someone with a water quality impact coming to us. And it's you know, this is where I've been going back and forth, is like, okay, you know, some of the things that Mike mentioned earlier, is that, are we going to investigate every single water quality exceedance? And this is where I just get, you know, is the role of the GSA starting to morph into the water quality board? And this is where I'm struggling a little bit, and you can tell I'm struggling because I'm doing a poor job of explaining this.
This is where I think we have to see what some of the others in the Tule Subbasin do, because, you know, probably the most strict policy is gonna drive the rest of the subbasin, and we haven't had an opportunity to discuss or coordinate those plans at all yet, so.
I reached out to Four Creeks before this meeting last week, and they hadn't done anything yet as well.
I'm hoping, I mean, that it would be, you know, through the CV salts effort and the management plans, that they would deal with it, and they would be focused more on how we're gonna deal with subsidence, and the bigger, you would think would
Water
be the
level
bigger,
issue. Yeah.
I will say it's very important from the state's perspective that we monitor this, take water quality very seriously and monitor it. And I think what we're gonna have to do is have a baseline, and if we see changes in water quality in our representative monitoring sites, then that would trigger.
That's a different issue. I mean, it's the same issue, but it's different.
Those are what the GSA's impacts are, right? So if we're, seeing degradation in any way in water quality at those representative monitoring sites, the GSA is going to be somewhat responsible for that, or responsible for that.
I would have, when you were forming your thoughts, I was thinking if you see change, then you investigate it.
Yes.
The GSA, you know, causing it or responsible to say if there's change, GSA.
Yes, I think we would be cautious how we phrase that, but that's when, you know, that's when really the GSA comes into play. If water levels continue to trend down and something were to happen with water quality in areas because of that, then the GSA would likely, that's when a mitigation program might kick in.
It's gonna be very tough. Say, this water quality issue is associated with this, plume that we didn't cause, right? So just because, let's take something other than nitrates, because nitrates I agree, we can put back on CV salts. But take, some other plume, and if that compound has moved because water levels have dropped, that's sufficient for the GSA to have to go into a mitigation mode. And I guess I have some heartburn with that.
And Amir, it drives to that one comment that I heard with the state board too, that when I look, subsidence is all dealing with lower aquifer, dealing with the upper aquifer, and, you know, they were critical about all these plans. They're all treated as one aquifer, and I think we're gonna have to deal with, you know, how the pumping restrictions and stuff on how we're gonna mitigate subsidence, and then if we're in addition to the quantity of water there. And, you know, I don't know any of those plans, or, you know, I'm probably wrong, but haven't seen plans where people are really monitoring and managing the aquifers independent of each other. It seems like they're all just kind of clumped together.
They're looking at the upper and lower a little bit differently. But Mike, in our last Thule meeting, we were talking about the way we were going to monitor, and I even asked the question point blank. I go, you know, that works in the upper aquifer, but it doesn't work in the lower aquifer. And so I agree. And you know, we meaning Tri-County, we don't have that many wells in the upper aquifer. But I just want to be careful that I'm not overcommitting this, you know, just want to be careful how we write this particular section.
But I should know the answer to this, and I forgive me, I don't. And maybe David Finney does, but are we consistently collecting the groundwater quality information from Allensworth CSD? Because we should collect that and have that, because I'm assuming the CSD has to test their groundwater on a regular basis. And I know there's arsenic issues there, but we should have that baseline, and we should be continually getting those updates from their CSD.
I believe we are. I believe we are. It's in the annual report. So, if anyone on the call does have any ideas about this particular section, I think we are definitely open to it. You can hear the ongoing debate internally here. Just moving on, to keep us on schedule, the claims process is very much similar to what you've already previously seen. For the water levels, we'd have a form. We'd want to make sure, again, that the well is registered in our well registry program, and then they would fill out a form, and again, it'll look very similar to the form that you're already familiar with. We then would ask for data on the well, of course, you know, driller's logs and well construction information, and your pump information, and ongoing any previous water quality testing that may have done. We certainly would, you know, as I said, you know, municipal wells and public supply wells are certainly going to be eligible for this, not just domestic wells. And then we're going to get into an investigation of the claims. And I probably were going to beef up that section on the investigation of claims, because it is not our intent to identify every single source. So, for example, if you have elevated nitrates in your well, we don't want to have to go through and say, oh, well, it's coming from your neighbors. You know, I don't think we're going to be able to say it to that level of precision, and so I do want to be careful on what we're going to investigate and how much level of effort. Otherwise, we'll be spending a lot of money just investigating every water quality claim. And you know, getting to Mike's point, we don't know every well that was impacted in 2015. So, you know,
we're only investigating water quality for domestic, right?
For domestic and municipal.
Yes, and so that amount of wells for Tri-County, fortunately, is
not
large.
Yeah.
So
I am definitely concerned that, you know, a groundwater investigation as to why a well has been impacted for water quality can turn into a very expensive thing, and we do want to be careful about that. The potential options for mitigation. This again is an area that I think is going to be further modified as we start to put this together, including you know, KODU had asked about better solutions, better systems. You know,
we probably need to, look at that as, you know, and include some of those other options that you and, you know, that you threw out there. Again, it is.
Yes, we could add the line, advocate for, full sewer system. And we could just say for Allensworth, we could put it right in there. That is our community, so
Right.
make it a bullet point.
Yeah, I agree. So those are the types I'm glad you guys we're having this meeting, because it's helping us to understand some of your needs and your thoughts on this as well. And then we'll be obviously going into an outreach program so that people understand, and we'll probably want to work with some of our domestic well partners, self-help and others, MLRP efforts that are already underway for outreach. You know, we can piggyback onto some of those efforts as well.
Before you go farther, this is Denise, and I just wanted to say regarding if you go back to outreach or
Yes.
Yeah, that we are working on. I think you were speaking about dealing with some of the groundwater problems and sewers, that we are trying to work on a system, and Coyote had mentioned it earlier. So we have design work completed and really trying to move forward into getting funding from the federal level. So you know, we you know, as you put your draft together, and Deanna just mentioned Allensworth, you know, you can make mention of that, where we are in this process, because we're looking at connecting all of the dots, if you will, to make sure that those things can connect. So from the the community and its application through the county and the federal funding sources, with the work that you're doing, those kind of connect, as well as with the stormwater management as well. Because
Okay.
activity is going on in both instances to try to make these things happen. And that connects back with the discussion about working with Dr. Longley and Sarge and the others, which is gonna be, I won't say be activated, but we'll have some meetings coming up in the immediate future to discuss just this opportunity.
And Denise, we should probably have another meeting with myself and you and Coyote and other representatives, because I'm going to be much more engaged with people on the state level. And if I had a list of anything that affects water for you, sewer system, still your left needs for your community wells, I would love to advocate for those things while I'm working on specific SGMA issues, because it ties together.
Yeah.
And so, you know, your list, and I think I know your list, but it does change, and you know, as you guys move forward with your plans, so we probably need to have, you know, a little bit more of a regular meeting, and just even if it's a quick catch up, try to schedule
Okay,
something.
yeah, we
that
still
I know
continue
about.
to add the resources that you have coming in as it relates to the Allensworth community. So I think what you said is correct, that we do need to do that, because the opportunities are going to come, I would hope soon, that we would be able to have that. We already have the collaboration, to where that collaboration takes us to the next level to get the funding, but the more planning and design and prep we have to be shovel ready, the better to our advantage. So that's why I was mentioning it as you were talking about concluding Allensworth, that we connect all those dots.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the big part, yeah, thank you, Carl. The other big unknown, of course, is we're going to start to identify some of the funding sources, and also look into in all of this, I think, is some close coordination with the CV Salt coalitions and making sure that people are aware that those coalitions also can be a potential funding source. So there's going to be a lot more detail added into that section as well. I still would love to hear anyone's thoughts, you know, either on this call or you know, contact Deanna or myself afterwards on that criteria. And where do we say, yes, this is the GSA funded mitigation and it's our responsibility, and where do we cut the line off and say, okay, this is a water quality issue that does not have anything to do with the GSA. And Mike's a little bit more skeptical than I am. I
think the state board's probably gonna give us that answer.
Yeah, probably. You're probably right, Mike. You're probably right. So, schedule-wise, we'd like to continue to work on this a little bit. We have several items that are going to occur between now and our next meeting, including the very important meeting with the state board on June 5th. So, and when we regroup and meet again here at the end of June, we'll have some updates for you on that. We'll have an update for you on this water quality mitigation plan, and then we'll also be able to update you on a few other items on the design for the Allensworth project and other projects as well. So I think I'm going to wrap that up. Am I early, Stacy?
A little bit.
Oh, wow. So not too bad. At least I didn't keep you long. Any questions? Deanna, do you have anything else you wanted to add, or did I miss anything?
No, I think that covers it. We are still working on our core plan for the MLRP. At some point, we will have a presentation to this group. I'm not sure it'll be in the June meeting, but as Susan said earlier, we're just working on putting together a landowner advisory committee as well as a community advisory committee. And so that feedback will help us with those, move those plans along. But they're, you know, it's continually coming together. The outreach is coming together, so we should see something on that, if not this summer, early fall.
So our next meeting for this group is on June 28th, and then we have a board meeting scheduled for July 17th.
Yes, because the original meeting was scheduled during the week of 4th of July.
Oh, that's right.
So we set up a special meeting date.
Okay.
That's on the website, and have we sent that out to the interested parties? We will closer to July,
Yeah, closer to the normal date.
showing the new meeting date.
Yeah. So everybody just update your calendars for that, July 17th is the board meeting as well. All right.
Great.
I don't see any questions or any hands up. And if not, going once. Okay.
Thank
Thank you,
all.
everybody. Take care.
Thanks for participating.